Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again are my co-hosts, Richie O'Leary and Alec Krauthamel. The scarlet smoke has emitted from Queens, old Queens. We have a new president at Rutgers University. We'll get into who he is, where he's coming from, and everything about the hire. We also have two new commitments for the Rutgers football team from the transfer portal. We'll get into both of those at the end. But first, this podcast is presented to you once again by MyBookie. It's crunch time on the court, and the NBA playoffs are your chance to score big, whether you're riding with the favorites or cheering for the underdog. Every three-pointer, dunk, and buzzer beater is an opportunity to win at MyBookie. Place your bets live as the action unfolds, and if you're feeling confident, you can lock in your winnings early with a quick cash-out option. Never miss a chance to turn your basketball insights into real cash. And if you're new to MyBookie, you could sign up with our promo code. That's MM50. You can instantly boost your first deposit by 50%. So if you deposit $50, MyBookie will toss in an extra $25. There's more action, more excitement, and more chances to win during the basketball season in the most intense NBA playoffs I can remember in a while. A lot of upsets, really topsy-turvy. If you're a Knicks fan and you want to really take advantage of this Knicks run, this is your opportunity to. Plus, when the games wrap up, you can continue your winning streak at MyBookie's casino with slots, blackjack, roulette, and more. The thrills never stop. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, Rutgers University has a new president, Dr. William F. Tate IV from LSU. He was the sitting president at LSU, and we had heard for a while that they were targeting some big Power 2 sitting presidents, and it sounds like the final two might have been sitting president. So, Rich, I'll let you talk about kind of who you were hearing was in the running for the job and ultimately how Dr. Tate ended up as Rutgers president.
Yeah, if you read Steve Footy's article recently, like they said that they're not going to reveal the finalists, but we know Stuart Bell was very heavily involved in this. We know that that's the Alabama president, for those of you that don't know. That was the one I was actually hinting at, and that's the one that we kept hearing for the past couple of weeks. And it made a lot of sense because he was already announced as stepping down. He was already kind of looking for another job, although he did say when he was stepping down he's going to go into a faculty role at Alabama. But then all of a sudden you hear he was runner up for the Texas A&M president job, and it's like, okay, so you still want to be president, but there's still you kind of got pushed out, it sounds like, which is fine. Solid decade-long run at Alabama, multiple championships. It was like, okay, like how do you say no to this guy if he wants to be your president? But in the end, they chose William Tate, and someone actually kind of leaked it on the Board of Governors meeting, which was kind of funny.
For those of you who weren't listening, they go to the opening remarks and then they go to a closed session, and there's a bunch of BOG members who can't make it in person, so they're reporting in, from Zoom. And somebody, I don't know who it was, goes, "The LSU president, the Rutgers president." This guy's on that meeting with like Fox News blasting in the background. It was a bit of a shit show, but it was pretty funny.
No kidding. But I mean, honestly, this is probably a little bit bigger of a brag, kind of, because you're not just getting a guy that was stepping down. You're getting a guy that was legitimately one of probably the better presidents in the SEC. I mean, LSU's won multiple championships, gymnastics, baseball. I forget what else I wrote. Women's basketball. And not only that, like he's very involved. Like if you watch that Paul Feinbaum interview that you sent us, he specifically said, I talk to recruits when they're on campus. Like that's huge. It's all about building winning programs, not just like certain championship teams like everyone else says. I thought he was very well spoken. He's the first ever African-American president in SEC, which is a huge deal in its own right. Now, he's only been in the Northeast for college, it looks like, and that was at Maryland for master's or doctorate, one of the two. I forget. But either way, it's just a little bit of an adjustment to go from at South Carolina, LSU, mostly a Southern guy, to now being in the Northeast. But he seems like a big win on paper, and LSU fans are pissed a little bit and kind of stunned. So this seems like a big coup for Rutgers.
He assumed the role of president at LSU in 2021, and he's only 60 years old, and he just got a contract extension in 2024. So this is the big difference between Stuart Bell, who's the outgoing Alabama president who we've been hearing, and Tate, is that LSU clearly wanted to keep this guy. He just got a contract extension, 3 national championships in big time sports at LSU. You have a Heisman winner in Jaden Daniels, 5 top 10 picks in his 4 years there. Alec, what's your take on the overall? How do you feel about this hire? How excited are you for Dr. Tate to become the Rutgers president?
Yeah, kind of echoing what you guys have been saying. It definitely feels like a power move, taking a sitting power two president, not and not one that was on his way out. Even though I think Bell probably would have been a pretty good hire as well, but one that was actively in his job, and like you said, it signed an extension last year. And I think it's definitely a big step forward that the one of the pillars of him coming in is that he is involved with athletics and was really involved with a really strong athletic department like LSU's. Because with Holloway, he was kind of one of those ones. When he came in for his successor Robert Barchi, where it was him being pro athletics was a big stepping point for him, and a bit of a change up from how Barchi was in his time at Rutgers. So continuing that trend was obviously very important. The fact bringing in someone like Stuart Bell that was in consideration kind of showed where some of the priorities were, where they wanted to have someone that definitely had that kind of like pro athletics type background. So yeah, I think this is a good hire. I obviously, we're not too much in the weeds of like the other presidential stuff. We're mostly looking at it through like a Rutgers athletic lens. So from that lens, I definitely like it. And yeah, like you said, he's only 60. I know only 60, but I mean, in terms of presidential ages, that's not too bad. Yeah, I guess it's pretty good. And like you guys said, it's a power move to take a sitting power two president. I mean, again, I'm not the biggest expert on higher education and all that fun stuff, but from my point of view, I think this is pretty solid. I guess as we learn more about him, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, he's set to start in about a month and a half.
Yeah, and I think the hires of a university president really can indicate kind of where the university is deciding to kind of focus its attention. Obviously, we've had some pretty long tenured presidents in the recent memory. Richard McCormick was president for over 10 years. Robert Barchi was president for 8 years, yeah, at Rutgers. Holloway obviously didn't have as long as a tenure, but that was his choice. They wanted to extend him. He chose not to. But let's talk about what Barchi was hired to do. Barchi was hired from an elite medical university in Johns Hopkins to integrate UMDMJ into Rutgers as Rutgers Medical School. Did a great job there. Basically did nothing else. He was a huge albatross to the athletics program. We saw President Holloway get hired because he was seen as someone who understood what elite academics and elite athletics could merge into in his time at Northwestern and his time at Stanford as a student athlete. Now, with the hire of Dr. Tate as the president at Rutgers, he's coming over from LSU, who's a good school. It's not, a Stanford or a Northwestern, but they clearly understand the value of athletics in the academic experience, in the experience of alumni wanting to give back to a university and wanting to be proud to walk around in university gear. So I think this signals that Rutgers is only going to take athletics even more seriously than ever before. Do you guys agree with kind of my just high level take on what this hire of a sitting SEC high level? It's not like we hired Vanderbilt's president. We hired LS
Yeah.
freaking U's president. This is huge.
Yeah.
Richie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, the more I read about him, like he played basketball and baseball, and also ran track, did cross country growing up. So athlete through and through. Hearing basketball, it seems like the more I read about him, is the more he was heavily involved with basketball, especially with the LSU teams. We know that the women's teams obviously just won a championship 2 years ago. They also have one of the top NIL people or NIL players in college athletics in general. Between Livy Dunn with gymnastics, who was like number 4 overall, I think, between every athlete. Then there's like Flaugy Johnson, who's the number 1 women's player. Angel Reese was there a couple years ago. Like it's just, I think anyone that's a basketball fan has to be kind of a little bit excited because it's like,
Paul
oh my God,
Skeens for baseball.
Baseball. Yeah, I didn't even think about Paul Skeens.
Garrett Nussmeier, current quarterback.
Garrett Nussmeier's, I think, I'm going based on those rankings are from On3's NIL evaluation. It's not completely accurate, of course. But the fact that they have multiple top athletes in multiple different sports, it just tells you that they know what to do in NIL and not just, and that's like one of the bigger things, but he's also a basketball guy. It seems like he really cares about basketball. So if you're a Rutgers basketball fan, which, I mean, plenty of them, but they need some help there. So maybe he can help out, whether it be NIL, fundraising, renovations, because we know the rack needs to be renovated completely. On top of that, I find this one really interesting. He runs a podcast on his own too. So I don't know if we'll be able to get him on here, but
is he going to be? Are we going to be competing with him soon?
No, I don't know. His podcast is actually about one of his newer passions, and it's about golf. It's called On Par with the President, and he hosts like random like professional golfers, influencers about golf, and anyone that's been ranting about how Rutgers needs to get rid of golf. The course is too small. I think this guy might even come in here and just be like, "That's the first, maybe not the first facility, but I think he'll at least try to get the golf program turned around a little bit because they can't even host home matches right now." So I think he's an athletics guy through and through, and I think it's just huge from a fundraising standpoint, from an NIL standpoint. He knows what it takes to win. Like this seems like a win-win all around. Like I just kind of shocked Rutgers pulled this off.
Imagine he keeps that going, and then with a co-host Chris Gotterup, that would be awesome.
I was just about to say.
There you go.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
I also thought it was interesting. I was listening to the comments during the Board of Governors meeting. I forget who exactly was speaking, but they mentioned in their vision to find a new president, it was someone who had experience with athletics and also with a research university with a multi-campus structure, which is a lot of what Rutgers is. So it seemed like they really had a clear vision, and it's a vision that they kind of needed to go after. Someone who has experience with athletics and wants to keep moving athletics forward, especially in the time now where everything is going every which way in terms of athletics, NIL and all that fun stuff. So it seemed like they had a vision to go after someone that can keep athletics moving and also keep the research aspect going too, because obviously that's very important with Rutgers and their research university. It seems like pretty solid from our vantage point.
Yeah, definitely a power move, and definitely shows kind of where, I think a lot of us can get pretty insular with our thoughts on Rutgers, always talking about the Rutgers "are you screw" and kind of getting down on ourselves for things not going our way. But clearly, I think a lot of these positions at Rutgers are more attractive than maybe we think from the inside. From the outside, if you look at how Rutgers has risen up in U.S. News, world rankings for universities, how Rutgers now has a full share for Big Ten athletics. We are in one of those top 2 conferences you need to be in to have success at a high level in college athletics. We're in one of the most affluent states in the country. So it'll be interesting to hear kind of what his opening remarks are when he's actually inducted as president in July. But this is a great hire. I'm a bit blown away that they were able to pull something like this off. This is a huge, huge coup for the university. Anything else on Dr. Bill as the president that you guys wanted to hit on before we talk some recruiting?
Dr. Tate.
Dr. Tate. Jesus,
I know.
In my head, I keep mixing it up.
We all thought it was going to be the other one. This worked out though pretty well. Like I'm just like you said, shocked. This is huge for Rutgers.
I guess looking ahead, how does this affect the athletic director search? I mean, does it widen the range of candidates now that they have, obviously having a president in place makes hiring an athletic director a lot easier, but having someone with the track record in athletics like Dr. Tate, how does that affect the athletic director search? Does it widen their horizons? It feels like if they can hire a sitting president from LSU, a big-time SEC school, it feels like they can definitely do the same with an athletic director. Maybe not like from a high-level SEC school, but in that similar vein, they take a sitting athletic director from somewhere else.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, because he never really hired one, technically, because Scott Woodward's been there since 2019. So it's like outlasted him, technically.
Yeah, no, I think that kind of when you have a guy in LSU, I think his first year they won a football national title after hiring Ed Ozeron, and so I think when you win a national title on the football field, you're pretty locked in as AD for a bit. But it will be interesting to see how that is affected by the presidential hire. I mean, we all knew that the athletic director wasn't going to get hired until the president was in place. So could we see an AD get hired by the start of the new academic year? I think it's possible, but I also think that it wouldn't surprise me if that isn't filled. So we'll just have to sit and wait and see. All right, let's transition over to some football recruiting. Rutgers has added 2 players in the transfer portal to its 2025 football team. Let's start let's go in chronological order. So in one of the stranger editions of the offseason, Rutgers landed New Haven University or University of New Haven offensive tackle Justin Cesaire. He's a 6'4", 310-pound offensive tackle who's from Orange, New Jersey. He's got 1 year of eligibility remaining. Rich, talk about what's going on with New Haven and how Rutgers ended up with this kid.
Oh yeah, you're not kidding. This was a very weird one. New Haven, one of the better D2 programs over the past couple of years, won their conference the past 2 years running. They were pretty good, and then they announced they're going to make the move up to FCS this upcoming season, which, I mean, good for them, huge, right? And then all of a sudden, a couple days later, they fire their head coach, who had a record of 76-24 since taking over there. So it's like, okay, what? Like, what? You fired him? Hold on. I know you're making the leap, and maybe you could find like a big name guy, but that's just a weird decision in its own right. But New Haven's lost, Rutgers gained. Justin Cesaire has been one of the better offensive tackles in his league. He actually won Offensive Lineman of the Year this past season. He was also All-Conference first team, of course. He was All-Conference second team the year before. He started at left tackle for the past 2.5 seasons for New Haven. He's been very, very dominant down there. Mind you, huge jump up from D2 to not just FBS, we're talking to the Big Ten level. Can it be done? Yes, I don't think it's impossible, but it's going to be interesting to see where he kind of fits. The fact that they keep bringing in offensive tackles, it seems like it's more so depth than anything else. But they do think he's going to come in, and they're going to see what he can do. Between him, between Ryder Langsdale, between Tyler Needham, Taj White. Hell, I'll even throw in Mashoud Giwa in there too, even though he's got multiple years versus a lot of these guys have 1 or 2 years remaining. So I think best case scenario, you got a damn good offensive tackle. I think his tape looks good. Mind you, he's going up against a lot smaller people, and they're really not as talented and not as much polished either. But that's really what training camp's going to decide. We're just going to see who the best 2 tackles are, whether it be a Lafayette kid, whether it be a New Haven kid, whether it be one of the returners in Tyler Needham, Taj White. I think it's just kind of let them compete and figure it out during camp, because competition brings out the best in everyone. So let's just see what happens.
So does he stick at tackle? Does he get moved into guard? Are they going to play around in training camp to see who just the best 5 are? Where do you see him landing on the positional depth chart?
I think size-wise, he screams guard. But then again, like, Tyler Needham doesn't scream tackle either to me when you look at his size. So Tyler Needham was one of the better tackles last season on the team overall. So it's like, it's tough to say. I think you try him out at tackle, see what happens. But from what I know, they are open to him playing interior as well. Where would he fit on that interior? I mean, Zelinskis is back. Felter, if healthy, is probably one of your best, if not best, linemen out there. And then Kobe Asamoah is right there and has been very consistent as well. So I don't know if he would really play along the interior. I think this closest or quickest way to get playing time this year in his lone season remaining would be a tackle.
So Rutgers has added now 4 offensive linemen since the winter period ended. So they've added a ton of offensive tackles in the portal. And we got to also kind of counterbalance that was they've lost 3 tackles in the portal too. So I think that plays a big part as to why. But another part has to be they couldn't have been thrilled with what they saw in the spring to add 4 tackles. Alec, do you agree with that general take, or you think they're just filling in the depth they lost from the subtractions in the portal in the spring?
I definitely think it's a little bit of both, because you're talking about guys like Langsdale, who's one of the top tackles in the portal, and Cesaire, who it looks like he might actually have 2 years to play 1 season, because as a freshman in 2022 played 9 games. He played in he started 10 of the 11 games in 2023. 2024 he was the starting tackle. So could we see maybe like if it works out that way, could we see maybe a red shirt and he'll be ready for next year, I guess? If he has a red shirt year?
We did it with Shedrick Rhodes last year. I think it's unlikely, but it's certainly possible. Rich, what do you think?
So I'm trying to figure out if he actually has that year or not, because he was technically a 2021 recruit at Orange, and I know someone tweeted out, and it wasn't I forget the academy. It was one of those like random academies down in the Carolinas, and it wasn't the Fuma Academy that Colin Pierce went to. But they were like, "Oh, welcome to the team in the summer," and then I think he enrolled in 2021. So I think he did technically redshirt. It's just not on the profile currently for New Haven. So I have to double check on that. I don't know the logistics behind it, but could he? I mean, was he? We don't even know what he did in 2022. Like, was he hurt? Did he just miss the season? Like, it could be a bunch of different things. Could he have an extra year? I think if that's the case, you obviously go for it, right? Redshirt him. Screw it. Like, we'll get you next year, because if you can play guard, Ryan Felter's gone, and then you could maybe step up or battle with Nick Oliveri, who's probably going to be the front runner for that spot right now. So I think it's just more so you add as much depth as you can to replace those guys. And I think they actually come out better in the long haul because like Jalen Matthews wasn't going to play this year.
Yeah.
Dominic Rivera probably would have been the top tackle backup, but you just added Ryder Langsdale, who's probably better and more polished. He's older too, on top of it. Mashu Giwa is a multi-year guy. This kid could be a multi-year guy. So in the long haul, you're getting a better haul than what you originally had. So I think it's a win-win, even if these guys are just depth pieces.
And you're also bringing in a guy like Zach Amlin, who has experience in a Big Ten program.
Yeah.
He hasn't played yet, but he has that experience in the Big Ten program, and he's a multi-year guy too. So, but yeah, to go back to Mike's original point, yeah, I kind of agree where it seems like they're bringing in a lot of talent. Granted, they lost some talent, in particularly like in depth pieces, but I mean, these are some of the guys that like you're thinking in your head, these guys could compete for starting spots. There's definitely at least a little bit of competition, maybe not for the starting spots at tackle, but like for the number 2 or maybe even for the starting tackle spot. But I kind of agree there. Yeah, I also think it's just like you're replacing some of the guys. And we saw last year when Felter went down, it seemed like the entire offensive line took them a couple weeks to kind of bounce back from that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe they're just, preparing for that as well, stocking up. I mean, we've seen them do that at a couple of different position groups, really stocking up on depth because, we saw they learned from last year. What happens when you don't have that depth, and it can definitely cost you. Looking at this edition and then also the long snapper edition that we'll talk about as well, it seems like they are acting as if they don't believe the 105 roster limit is going to be in place this year because, I mean, we know, I think that's still going on, that they're still debating if it's going to be in effect this year or if they're going to give a little bit of a grace period to teams. It seems like Rutgers is acting like they're going to get that grace period because they're still adding guys. As far as I can tell, they haven't lost too many guys. Granted, some of the guys still on the team that might leave are grad transfer, so they can kind of leave whenever. But it seems like with the additions that they're making, it seems like they're not really going for a roster limit right now. I guess is that accurate?
That's the way it seems to me.
Yeah,
for sure.
The roster limit's not going to be put in place this year, it sounds like. So that's
it
huge.
Seems like the judge is pretty adamant on that.
Yeah, no, it's and Schiano doesn't make these kind of decisions without feeling pretty certain about outcomes. Schiano's very good about that. So to add what is now the 17th and 18th players in the transfer portal, which who would have thought, we were bitching and moaning a few years ago about only going after 3, 4, 5 guys in the portal. Now we're at 18, which is a huge sea change for Schiano, but to his credit, he has realized that this is the way the game is played now, and he's got more money at his disposal with his, NIL war chest that he's been building, and also the ability to, have a big chunk of the revenue sharing. I think that's helped Schiano more than almost any coach in the country to have, disposable income, I guess we could say, to throw around at guys, to lay in guys he actually wants. But I guess that's a good transition. The other addition, or do you guys have anything else on Cesaire or the offensive line additions before we talk about the long snapper?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, just trust in Pat Flaherty.
Yeah, if Flaherty wants a guy, then I'm 100% behind it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the long snapper edition. Caleb Johnston comes over from University of Washington, where he spent last year. He also has previously spent time at Cal. He's got 2 years of eligibility left. This one's a little curious to me. Obviously, you want to probably add a long snapper who has experience after they got a pretty good season out of Austin Riggs. But this is a guy who, Rutgers played Washington last year, obviously, and infamously, the kicking unit kind of costs Washington the game. They missed 3 field goals in a game they lost by 3 points. And I'm not a special teams expert, but seeing that kind of performance wouldn't really make me say that long snapper, man, we could add him in the offseason. And I haven't gone back and watched the snaps again, but just on the face of it, that's just a curious addition. Rich, what are you hearing about the addition of Caleb Johnston and where he fits into the pecking order at long snapper?
I mean, they lose Austin Riggs, so it sounded like Michael O'Connor was the guy in spring, and it seems like a similar situation to offensive line. It's like, all right, you see what you have, and you're like, okay, maybe we should go get one. And he's in a weird scenario where he left Washington in December, joined Cal in January, spent the entire spring at Cal, and then left Cal and now is at Rutgers. I don't know how you recruit a long snapper. I don't even know what you see in limited tape. And he's only started 1 year, not even 1 year, because he wasn't the starting long snapper for them until game 4 this past season. And that was specifically for PATs, and I think it was field goals. He doesn't do punts, so is he gonna be able to do that? Is Michael O'Connor the guy for punts? I don't know, man. I don't really know how to judge a long snapper whatsoever. It's either you can place the ball correctly or you can't. It's just I'm not saying there's not more to it and more intricacies, but it just seems like you're either accurate and you have it or you don't.
I mean,
it's a weird one.
I'm not entirely sure.
Hot long snapper takes.
I'm not entirely sure how PFF grades long snappers, but he had a grade of 39.3 this past year, which I think was really anchored by one game against Eastern Michigan. He finished with a 28.2 grade. The rest of his grades are mostly in the 60s, so it's not that bad. I'm really not sure how PFF again grades long snappers. I also haven't gone back and watched that game yet, but I feel like it might have been more of a kicker thing than a snapper thing that they missed the kicks. Let's see if I can. I'm watching it right now. I'm about to watch the. Oh no, they went for it on 4th down. Never mind. All right, never mind. So we'll watch that game at some point and see how he looked. I don't really remember the snaps being wow, this guy can't snap or anything like that. But also, special teams is much more intricate and all that stuff. But yeah, this is an interesting one. He actually made his first field goal. Granted, it was a 22-yarder and the snap was accurate, so he got that going for him. I'm interested to see how this works. I feel like it's always good to have, I guess, competition wherever you can get it, because I think, Mike, you said this before, competition can make guys better. So we'll see if either Michael O'Connor or Caleb Johnston can get better from this competition, and we'll see who wins out. And of course, it's always good to have depth as well at every position.
Yeah, 100%. If Rutgers has any injury woes this year, there will be at least competent guys behind him, as last year that wasn't necessarily the case. But that's not a shot at any players. They just weren't necessarily ready for the roles that they were thrust into due to how many injuries we had last year. And something Warren Sharp talks about a lot is when he's looking at he's one of the best football bettors in the world for pro football, at least. He looks at cluster injuries where teams who lose their top 3, say 3 of their 4 defensive backs, that's when he really losing an individual player isn't necessarily a make or break thing for a football team. But when you lose your 3 top corners or 3 of your 4 starting defensive backs, that's where the communicate, it's easy to imagine you're at your work and say, I don't know, you have 4 people on your team and one person's out, on maternity leave. Think of how you would kind of balance your work. But if you lost 3 of your 4 coworkers to maternity leave, think of how hard your job would become. And that's kind of the same concept. Anything else on any of the additions or where things stand? Oh, we got a field goal attempt.
So I found the highlights from the Rutgers Washington game this past year. First one was a 22-yarder, which we don't really. The snap was good. Here's the first missed field goal. Snap looks good. The kicker just hooked it. If we'll take, let's take a watch here in slow motion. See what we think. We're really going in on the long snappers here. Let's go to 0.65. Okay. All right. So snap. It looks pretty good. It looks on target.
Oh.
And yeah, kicker just hooked it. Let's see if I don't know where the other. I don't know where the other kicks are. Let's see if I can skip through this video and watch it. But yeah, that first one was good. No, that's a Rutgers kick. This was the one that got called back because the guy ran on the field. Yeah, that was hilarious.
Man, what an absolute dumbass
and then
penalty.
Strong caught the touchdown the very next play. Let's see if I can scroll through and find another field goal attempt. That was a touchdown. Yeah. Another touchdown. That was the Brown touchdown. That was a very exciting one. Yeah, that was a great run. Here's another one. Okay, 38 yards.
Missed field goals, are 7:20 and as time expired.
Yeah. Oh geez, that one. Right. Yeah, snap looked good. And he just hooked that one as well.
It looks the placement too, where the holders just.
Yeah, and then we'll go to the end here. This was the the game-winning field goal or a game-tying field goal attempt. Granted, this one was 55 yards, so you get a little bit more grace here, missing a 55-yarder. This one from a hash as well. That
was
was a
bad
little bit
high.
high.
That was high.
I don't think that kick was going in anyways, though. And the holder actually did a pretty solid job of getting it down.
There's Greg just wanting to smirk so bad. Woohoo! Hey, I love it, man. He just never wants to show any emotion, unless it's like the mean emotion towards one of his coaches. I'm looking at you, Sean Gleason.
Or I forget which game it was. I think it was either like UCLA or Wisconsin. It was one of the October games. I think Joe Susan ripped into. I remember got caught on the broadcast too. I don't remember exactly what happened, but yeah. I mean, it seems like at least in this game, it wasn't really his fault that the kicker missed 3 kicks. So.
Ooh, a little bit of breaking news, and not really breaking, but Rutgers opens as a 10.5-point favorite versus Ohio in Week 1 per DraftKings.
Okay,
that's
about right.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I think people got to realize Ohio's not the same team they were last year, and I think Rutgers is a lot better on paper. So we'll see.
Yeah, and it's nice to have some intel too with. Bradley Weaver on the team. He could basically, give a scouting report on the guys who are left. But good.
We lost Richie.
And we lost Richie. All right. Well, Alec, did you have anything else you wanted to? There he is.
Oh, Richie's back.
Was there anything else that we wanted to hit on before we head out of here today, guys?
Let's see. I don't think so. Not much happening right now. I mean, official visit week's starting soon. Any new recruiting tidbits, Richie? Anything like that?
Ooh, Jared Smith not next. This Friday. Friday, 23rd? Today is 23rd. Yeah, this Friday. 23rd, Jared Smith will be deciding between a Final Four of Auburn, Georgia Tech, Rutgers. Let's just say there's probably going to be a pod. I mean, you guys already saw the future cast, so let's be honest here.
Jared Smith, a 4-star out of Georgia, too.
Yeah. So now just got to hope it's not a what was that kid's name that flipped back? Oh, Chase Linton type situation where Georgia doesn't come calling later on. But right now, Rutgers is a pretty good one.
It seemed like they also did the same with Braxton Kyle, but he ultimately stayed solid with Rutgers.
A little different.
They tried at least.
Yeah, there was it's a weird dynamic there. Like Georgia's going to recruit him till the very end, like they did with Braxton Kyle, but then they ended up landing like number 2 defensive tackle in the country, and it's like, okay, never mind. Like, so you keep those guys on the back burner, and I'm sure they'll do the same with Jared Smith. But hint, hint, wink, wink. See you Friday.
All right, I'm sure we'll have some official visitor primers too. Because are they taking visits this weekend?
Next weekend.
Next weekend. Okay.
Also, not Rutgers related, but a shout out to Brian Fonseca's beloved Sporting Club. They won the Portuguese league title. I know he was talking a lot about that on the Rutgers rant. They won this past weekend. I don't know much about Portuguese soccer other than what he said, but congratulations.
Football.
Yeah. Right. My mistake.
All right. Well, thanks once again for listening, for rating and reviewing, for sharing the pod with a friend. We really appreciate everybody who listens. But for me, Richie, and Alec, this has been another edition of the Net Report Podcast. Signing off.